Hi, and welcome to Read Along with Uncle Jimmy. My name is Jim Kovic, and today we have a special treat for you. I'm going to read a manuscript that was written by my mother, Patricia L. Kovic. It's entitled Parsimonious, a polite word for cheap, and I'm going to read the first chapter to you. My mother wrote this back in the mid-'80s. Unfortunately, she's not with us anymore. She died in 2006, and but she was a great woman. She was very talented, and she was a prolific writer. So here's chapter 1 from A Parsimonious, a polite word for cheap. Chapter 1. Have you ever been draped in order to determine your season of summer, fall, winter, or spring? The selection of your season, choosing the shades of colors attractive to you as an individual. I myself have only been aware of draping for the last 20 years or so, but my husband Tom must have become aware of the draping procedure way back in his high school days. His knowledge of draping proving one thing and one thing only, that navy blue was his color. Believe me, that must have been the precise reason that he joined the Navy instead of the Army or the Marines once World War II exploded into reality. We all realize that war is a daffy-dotty, psychotic act that kills and causes young blood to flow. But to Tom, whose favorite article is a mirror, I would hazard to guess that it was important to look good on the battlefield. Tom, it seemed to me when we were introduced, was so busy flattering himself or patting himself on the back that amazement seized me when he recalled my name. "How do I look, Pat?" he questioned. "How about these tailor-made blues?" I swear in a stack of forever ambers that he was the most egotistical male that I had ever encountered. Don't ask me the reason I fell in love with him. Why don't you ask him? He'll probably scribble a lengthy list for you. My choice of the Navy, now that was entirely a different matter, and believe me, it had nothing to do with patriotism, despite the fact that tears always spring to my eyes when I hear the parade band blare a patriotic song. When the war burst into the scene, my best friend Peggy would be as Tom would be, classified as a winter navy blue, bringing out her fresh youthful beauty. "Let's join the Navy," was her suggestion one morning while a coffee break lengthened. Sipping my coffee, I found myself wishing that I had ordered lemonade, but Peggy had taught me that coffee was more adult than childish lemonade. "What does the uniform look like?" I said. And Peggy whipped out a colored picture of a beautiful slim model who, like Tom and my friend Peggy, looked good in navy blue. The model was a winter, I was certain. Gazing at the uniform, I thought its lines slimming, and I tucked in a tired tummy, saying, "Okay with me. Permit me to set you straight. Despite the fact that Peggy and I joined the Navy, history books have recorded the fact that our side indeed was victorious. I have yet to be draped, but my Color Me Beautiful book states unequivocally that autumn is indeed my season and that I would look cute in khaki. I guess I should have joined the Navy." Tom was praiseworthy as far as the Navy was concerned. His main explanation had to do with the subject of finances, the Navy supplying a $50 monthly salary in addition to providing the basics of life, food, clothing, and shelter. Yes, Tom's $50 a month Navy pay provided him with cigarettes and dating money. Tell me, what more does a young man clamor for? A rumor abounded in the circles of Navy communications, the department where Tom and I were both stationed, that Tom's mother had pulled in the capital because as the war progressed and men were yanked out of communications, Tom was one of the few men remaining in that department. Poor Tom, surrounded by women who were replacing the men overseas. The only influence his mama had was on her husband, but that influence, I forced to admit, was of mammoth proportions. I swear on a tulip green, Mama would have made a great general or admiral, for Mama was a very bossy lady. Tom and I must have both hearkened to the song of the sirens at the identical moment, his eyes capturing mine. He probably approved of the manner in which my ass wiggled when I walked, and in retrospect I recall wondering at the possible magic lying behind those 13 buttons. I am aware, please don't tell me. We should have bewaired building our house on sand, but wary we were not. Tell me, who's wary when youth interferes? I should have been warned on our first date as he exaggerated his height. I'm 5'10", he said, as he dragged me around the dance floor. You don't look 5'10" to me. I attempted to slap down the little bandy who rejoiced that he had held back from admitting to the height of 6 foot and had only increased his deficient height by 2 inches. I was born in Chisholm, Minnesota, and I grew up in Wisconsin. He swaggered during the Lindy, shoving me out, pulling me close, a silly, engaging grin on his face, and the thought occurred to me to how his place of birth could benefit him in any way in the dating game. I was attracted to him, that was a good bet, and I wondered why, as he tooted his own horn the entire evening. Where are you from? He finally interrupted his self-monologue. Well, I'm 6'2", I teased, adding 12 inches to my height, and it did my heart good to see a blush bloom on both of his cheeks. In order to respond to your question, I was born in Brooklyn, and I grew up on Long Island. He kept staring at my breasts, and I crossed my arms in order to protect them from his prying eyes. I found myself wondering at the sensation I would feel if I should run my fingers through his hair, and I shivered with anticipation. That first date cost Tom all of 40 cents. 3 beers for him, 3 beers for me, plus a 10-cent bag of peanuts that we both shared. I have often wondered if he were appreciative of the sisterly kiss that I permitted at the end of the evening, he with the number 40 undoubtedly running through his economic mind. Was the kiss deserving of the 40-cent price of the date? I wondered as I signed in at the desk. I would presume he thought so, because following a couple of dates, we became a twosome in the eyes of the communications department, and we double dated often, becoming an integral part of a group, paddling canoes down the Potomac River, going to dances, ice skating in the winter, taking part in all the activities that young people participated in. It was a Monday, and we had just come off of the midnight shift, 7 a.m. Our plans included a full day of play, but we were young, thinking of our youth as endless. We not realizing that youth is just Lent, not an eternal gift. Who would dream in one's early years that permanent wrinkles would ever attract our face, ever attack our face, that arthritis would ever assault, that years would remove inches from our height? It had been decided that the girls would make tasty sandwiches, that the boys would purchase bottles of soda and beer. I could almost see Tom's adding machine brain at work as he weighed the differences in money on what I had spent for the sandwiches and what he had spent for his portion of the beer and the soda. Ding dong, sang his cash register. I should have been warned. I found myself repeating this true statement throughout the 50 years we have shared. Indeed, our first date and the succeeding ones that followed should have alerted the alarm, and I presume that it did. But the realization failed to hit me. Infatuation provided its blinders, and at the moment I was blind as Blind Bob, tapping his cane, being led by Toby, his seeing eye dog. The summer day sizzled as the steaming sun stabbed through willing clouds, the scent of Washington's cherry blossoms, heavy, the scent and actual presence. The boys shucked their shirts off their heads as they were shucking corn, their muscles rippling in the sun as they paddled the canoes, show-offs all. They rejoiced in the admiring glances the girls bestowed on their young, athletic, well-built bodies. The canoe growling in the sand, Tom displayed his agility as he drew our canoe out of the water. he pausing to verify the fact that I was glancing in his direction. A fun day. The day was depleted in a rush as we swam, as we slept, as we consumed all the sandwiches, all the soda, and every last ounce of the beer. Tom got poison ivy that day on all places but his penis. I would presume that after peeling his stream upon a mosquito, in drying off the article, he had slapped it against the poison ivy bush. There failed to be a reason, or even one explanation for my attraction to him, or for the attraction to me, for we were as diverse as Republicans and Democrats. His interests were so far removed from mine that one couldn't even make a comparison. We both did enjoy the theater. I am forced to admit that much. But there is theater and there is theater. I enjoyed the live theater. We went ape over movies, his favorites, westerns, where at the end the cowboy kisses his horse and fades into the sunset. Whenever we would honor the theater with our presence, he would always lead me to a seat in the rear. I liked to sit up front. His favorite color was green. I went for off-white. But despite, or perhaps it was because of our contrariness, he had the gumption to propose, and I must have said yes, because we were united in holy wedlock. He purchased a gold ring with the tiniest of diamonds. Here, he joked, it looks great in front of a magnifying glass. Isn't it pretty? I shall be forced to admit that he did go all out as we made a date to celebrate our forthcoming union somewhere in the near future. I don't see any of our friends here, I complained as I gazed about at the most popular cocktail lounge in wartime Washington, D.C. Tom grinned. No, he said, only people of means are seen here. And we're people of means? I said dubiously. Tonight we are people of means, he attempted to reassure. Sure, there were service personnel attending, but swabbies they were not. They all wore bars or oak leaf clusters or even stars on their epaulets. You want a beer? Was Tom's question as a cocktail waitress dressed rather skimpily waited for our order, her pencil poised over her pad. No, I asserted. I do not want a beer. I want a Tom Collins. Tom slipped an invisible mask over his face as he attempted to conceal his panic. One beer, one Tom Collins, he said, his face impassive. It was but a moment by the time the cocktail waitress returned with our drinks, and I admired the frosty glasses that my Tom Collins was being served in. A red cherry, a hat on top of the drink, the cherry stem hanging over the glass's lid. Suddenly a melody of bells alerted me. A gypsy approaching our table. The gypsy attired in a cacophony of colors, her gauze shirt wafting as she turned. Have your fortunes told, lady, she said, and I nodded my head. To be truthful, at this point, I was curious as to what the future held. Sitting down, the woman took my hand, her gaze intent on the tiny diamond ring that Tom had presented. Averting her eyes from the tiny diamond for a moment, she started tracing the lines on my hand with her index finger. Aha, she said, and I wondered what the aha meant. Did it bode good? Did it bode bad? Grabbing Tom's hand, she peered therein, assigning him a dark glance, throwing his hand back into his lap. Regaining my hand, I sensed the gypsy's compassion as she said, You are engaged, no? And her eyes reverted from the lines of my hand back to the tiny diamond once again. I nodded my head. To someone back home? She said, her voice sounding hopeful. No, I said. To him? She pointed her index finger in Tom's direction. To him, I joked. He's nothing to joke about. were her words. He, and she stabs her middle finger in Tom's direction, he will not enter into your labyrinth, lady. You are too far apart. But opposites attract, no? I questioned. He's all right to attract, but for life? The gypsy shrugged her shoulders expressively, and her gauzy shirt swung, and her jingly bells rang as she departed the table. Palm readers, Tom dismissed the woman with a casual wave of the hand. Tom slugging at his beer. I slipped at my Tom Collins, my feet tapping to the music. And that's chapter 1 of Parsimonious, Applied Word for Cheap, written by my mother, Patricia L. Kovic. And I hope to be reading more chapters from this book, and whatever your comments or critiques of this, bring them on and email me with them. What I intend to do actually someday is to have this book published, in that way that I can honor my mother, who wrote this book, as well as like actually 3 other books, including a book that she had published back in the early 80s called Mama, which is the story of my father growing up in Chisholm, Minnesota, which was mentioned here. And it's a really great book, and so hopefully I'll get that to you. Hopefully I can have a reading like this, and more readings. But that's it for chapter 1, and perhaps I can have a reading of chapter 2. In due time. All right. So I hope you enjoyed this. My name is Uncle Jimmy, and this is a heater for it. Of course, the next hot spot.